We turn to John's Gospel, and John chapter 20 and verses 24 to 31. This is actually a week later. This is the story of Thomas, who's gone down in history as Doubting Thomas, who was famously absent on the day of resurrection when the risen Lord appeared to them. Now Thomas, also known as Didymus, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said to him, "My Lord and my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." And then John adds, "Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." What I'd like to do is to use a bit of imagination. Can you imagine with me Thomas telling the story from his own point of view? And I'm going to be, if you like, playing the part of Thomas. I just couldn't get my head around it. "Thomas," they implored me again and again, "we've seen the Lord. He is alive. God has raised him from the dead." Well, my head's in a spin just thinking about it. Events had avalanched upon us. First of all, there was Gethsemane and Jesus being arrested, and I, along with the others, simply, I'm ashamed to say, legged it and kept my head down. The next thing I knew, Jesus was carrying his cross to be crucified. It was just too awful. I had to keep pinching myself. Was this really happening? I may have kept my distance, but I heard the hammer blows. I saw his body wince and writhe in pain. And the earth seemed to shudder in a sickening way as the cross was lifted up and then unceremoniously dropped into its socket. I watched him die. Unbelievable it was. That was not how it was meant to be. I saw the spear thrust into his side. I saw it all. And with the Sabbath approaching, his body was then unceremoniously taken down. And I later heard that Joseph of Arimathea had the guts to go and ask Pilate if he could take charge of the body and bury it. And buried it was. sealed in a tomb hewn out of rock, a huge boulder across the entrance with Roman soldiers on guard duty. That Sabbath came and went in a blur. Then Sunday morning, the others stayed together, but I just wanted my own space to gather my thoughts and try and figure it out. Where next? What next? It was a long day, with quite a surprise at the end. They came looking to tell me, Thomas, it's true. Thomas, he's alive. And they told me what had happened first thing that morning, how the women had gone to the tomb and finding the soldiers gone and the stone rolled away and the tomb empty. I thought, well, what about the guards? They told me about the angels who told them not to be alarmed and declared that Jesus was risen. They told me about Mary, thinking that she was speaking to a gardener, asking where he might have placed the body. They told me about Peter and John running to the tomb to check it all out. And they told me how Jesus had apparently explained on the road to Emmaus to two of our friends that all these things had been prophesied in Scripture itself. They told me about how, only an hour or two before they arrived, hammering at my door, that Jesus had appeared there in the room where they were all gathered, confused and afraid, and greeted them with a blessing of peace. Shalom. They said how he'd spoken to them all and that how they were overjoyed to see the Lord. You should have seen them. All sign of tiredness gone, wide-eyed with excitement. And the words kept tumbling from their mouths like a gushing waterfall. I just looked at them. They were so eager, so sure, so intense, so joyful. But were they mad? Or were they mad? They saw my face, skeptical or what? I looked from one face to the other, each face in turn silently imploring me to believe them. But I couldn't. Oh, don't get me wrong. I would have loved to have believed them. But resurrection? Make no mistake, Jesus was dead. Crucifixion is a one-way journey. So they tried again. Repeated it all and more until I had had enough. Look, I said, unless I see with my own eyes the nail marks in his hands and put my finger in them and put my hand in his side, I'll not believe it. But Thomas, they started. No buts, I shouted. That's the deal. They could see I meant it, and one by one, they left. You'll see, they said. Monday and Tuesday came and went. Long days. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they gave me no peace. Told me about it over and over again. Now, something must have happened. I couldn't deny it. But still, I couldn't believe it. But I believe it now. You see, a whole week later, it happened all over again, only this time I was there too. There was the usual babbling of chatter when suddenly it all went quiet. Everyone turned to look, and there he was, Jesus, just standing there, his eyes full of light and love. He looked around at everyone in general and said what he had said the week before, Shalom. But then he looked at me in particular. I'll never forget it. And I can't describe it. It was only a couple of seconds, but eternity seemed to invade and occupy each moment. Thomas, he said, as he offered me his hands. Thomas, put your finger here. Put your hand in my side. Quoted me exactly, he did. Can you imagine how I felt? Well, how would you feel? I felt embarrassed. I felt ashamed. I felt joy. I felt stupid. I felt awe. Waves of emotion churned within me as one. But more than anything else, I had to worship. And I fell to my knees and, choking back the tears, said it just as I saw it, my Lord and my God. You should have heard them cheer. Slapping me on the back. There you go, Thomas. Didn't we tell you? You can imagine the scene. But it went quiet again. And Jesus spoke words that will forever have my name attached to them. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. When I heard that John was going to write his gospel, I made sure I found him and said, "You've got to tell my story, John. Tell them, John," I said. "Tell them how I doubted. Tell them how I wouldn't believe. And tell them so that others won't repeat my foolish mistake. Tell them so that others will believe." I was dead chuffed when I found out that John did include my story. And after he wrote this, summing it all up, Jesus, he wrote, did many other miraculous signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but included Thomas's story. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. That, my friends, is the story of Thomas.